Simple Minds' New Gold Dream, 81, 82, 83, 84, was a seismic album for everyone involved in its recording. For Simple Minds, it marked the beginning of their true success. While the band had certainly received critical acclaim prior to this album, following the release of 4 more experimental albums over the previous 3 years, critical acclaim alone doesn't put food on the table. In fact, their lack of commercial success had put the band in debt, so they were undoubtedly ready for and preparing to achieve hit records. They had already made attempts at chart success, but with little impact. Their superb trio of 45s, the American I Travel and Love Song, had all failed to break into the top 40. New Gold Dream would be the album that didn't just open the doors to the charts, but smashed them down, paving the way for many more hit records. At the start of 1982, the band were buoyed by success in Australia. Love Song had been a top 10 hit, and they had enjoyed a successful tour there in late 1981, which gave them the confidence to begin writing tracks for their 5th album, New Gold Dream, at Rockfield Studios. The penny dropped, Jim Kerr told Louder Music magazine, and we started thinking, maybe we can be pop stars as well. Then there was Peter Walsh, the almost accidental producer who oversaw the recording of New Gold Dream. He had worked as an engineer at Utopia Studios in the 1970s, collaborating with Stevie Wonder, the Boomtown Rats, and other major names. However, his only actual production experience in 1982 had come with a couple of debut albums, including Penthouse and Pavement by Heaven 17, where he was assistant producer, and Difficult Shapes and Passive Rhythms by China Crisis, for which he earned his first full production credit, featuring their massive hit Christian. While these debut albums would go on to be critically acclaimed, in 1982 they had yet to gain much traction, meaning Walsh wasn't exactly in high demand. As luck would have it, he was asked to remix Simple Minds' Sweat in Bullet track from their 4th album, Suns and Fascination, their first on Virgin Records. After reworking the track with the band's guitarist Charlie Burchill, Walsh was asked to produce the band's eventual breakthrough hit, Promised You a Miracle. This came about because of his approach, which differed from that of many producers at the time. Walsh preferred to strip productions back rather than build them up, a method that impressed Burchill. Pete's taken a ton of stuff out, but don't worry, it sounds amazing. You'll love it, he told Kerr at the time, according to the liner notes in the New Gold Dream box set reissue. This approach ultimately secured Walsh the full-time job of producing the album. Remarkably, despite the band already having released 4 albums, Kerr and Burchill were both just 21 when work began on their 5th album. However, they were at something of a creative peak, and the lead single Promised You a Miracle was produced in just 3 days at Townhouse Studios in London. With a focus on crafting a hit record, the track was quickly edited for radio. It also made use of new guitar effects and amps, helping the band to steer in a new musical direction. The drums too had a distinctive sound, influenced by the unique recording space at Townhouse. The band and Walsh quickly established a sonic blueprint that would guide the rest of the album's production. After Promised You a Miracle, Walsh recalls, I think King is White, and In the Crowd had also been demoed, so we had an early reference point with those songs. In fact, when we recorded them, we were like, let's not mess this up because it already sounds great. The new direction was solidified when Promised You a Miracle broke into the UK top 40, marking the first Simple Minds single to do so. As the track climbed the charts, the band decamped to a rehearsal room in Fife called the Old Mill, where they worked on the rest of the album's tracks, developing instrumental arrangements while Kerr worked on the vocals. The time spent at the Old Mill also proved to be an important sonic chapter for the band, as it helped them refine their new sound. The sessions were recorded on a cassette ghetto blaster for the band to listen back to and use as a reference. They became so enamored with the overly compressed feel of these recordings that they decided to bring that sound into the actual album recording. After shaping the songs at the Old Mill, the band returned to Townhouse in London to complete what would become New Gold Dream, 81, 82, 83, 84. With their new musical path firmly established thanks to Promised You a Miracle, the album came together relatively quickly. The band was firing on all cylinders, and Walsh was thriving in his new role as producer, helping to capture and mould the ideas as they flowed. When you go into a studio, you want to work with musicians who are bubbling over with ideas, he explained. It then just becomes a question of arranging ideas. We got on really well. Jim in particular gave us all so much confidence. I was a young engineer, and this was one of my first productions. It was a chemistry that clicked from the word go and actually still exists today, as well as a strong bass sound across the album, often bolstered with a Moog synth. New Gold Dream is also defined by its drum sound. This was partly due to the distinctive recording space at Townhouse, but sometimes also due to Walsh's decision to record two drummers playing simultaneously. It was a turbulent time for the band's drummers, almost to the point of parody. Brian McGee had played on all four of the band's previous albums, but left in late 1981. He was replaced by Kenny Hyslop, who only stayed long enough to play on Promised You a Miracle before resigning. For New Gold Dream, Mike Ogletree was brought in, but Walsh also enlisted his friend Mel Gaynor to bolster the lineup, especially on the title track. New Gold Dream, the track, needed something special, Walsh explains. So I came up with the idea of both of them playing drums at the same time. I set them up facing each other. One of the guys would have the fill going into the first chorus, one the fill into the second chorus. One was doing the cymbals, the other wasn't. So it was orchestrated in a way, and I can remember standing in the middle of them, actually conducting. The plan worked. New Gold Dream became a powerful pulsating track of cycling synths and almost trance-like textures. So much so, in fact, that it was revisited by several dance acts in the 1990s. Kerr's vocals on the track were the last element he recorded for the album, and typically the last part added to each track. These were mostly recorded at the Manor Studio, where the band relocated to finish the album. Released in September 1982, New Gold Dream received massive critical acclaim and charted higher than any of its singles, peaking at number 3 in the UK. It eventually spent a year on the album charts, selling 300,000 copies along the way. I think we all thought the album was special, even before we started doing the tracks, Walsh recalls looking back on New Gold Dream. The album does have a timeless, endless quality to it, and I think it's been the soundtrack to a lot of people's lives and experiences. We knew we had something special and something great at the time. Kerr is a little more logical in his reflection and perhaps doesn't see the recording as such a major shift in direction, viewing it instead as a natural progression. Either way, his analogy with A New Dawn is quite beautiful. To me, New Gold Dream sums up the paths that we had gone on in the first 4 records, he told Lauder. Some with dark moods, some intense, some claustrophobic. And the storm broke, and then the next day you have a beautiful morning. New Gold Dream, the title, the artwork, the language of a lot of the songs resonates that to me. Having explored the journey behind New Gold Dream, 81, 82, 83, 84, and the creative process that brought it to life, let's now turn our attention to a closer examination of each track on the album. This section delves into the unique qualities, sounds, and standout moments of the songs that collectively shaped the band's iconic sound and marked a pivotal moment in their career. Let's explore how each track contributes to the overall feel of the album and the lasting impact it had on music at the time. Someone Somewhere in Summertime was the third single from the album, but as the opening track, it was the perfect vehicle to announce the more melodic and less experimental future for the band. From the outset, it makes the message clear. This is about catchy melodies, insistent bass lines, mesmerizing backdrops, Kerr's majestic lyrics, and snippets of influences from a wide variety of sources, all forging an instantly recognizable new sound and future. This is Simple Minds MK2, here we are. Don't forget about us. Having just announced their change in direction, Colours Fly and the Catherine Wheel takes you back to an earlier Simple Minds sound, with meandering bass lines, incidental effects, processed guitars, and Kerr's moody vocals. It swings between Roxy Music, Ultravox, and both Simple Minds incarnations. It's catchy and certainly not the worst track on the album, but perhaps it was something they needed to get out of their system. We already know that Derek Forbes' bass is a huge part of New Gold Dream's sound, and it is even more prominent on Promised You a Miracle. Fender Precision doubled with a Moog synth underpinning the strongest track on the album. But it's the guitar and synth stabs, and Kerr's lyrics, that also stand out. By the time they recorded the track, the band were in considerable debt and needed a miracle to save them. And in just 3 days at Townhouse Studios, they recorded a stunning track that not only brought them the success they desperately needed, but set them on a new path and began a record-breaking streak of chart hits. While Big Sleep might occupy a middling position on the album, it showcases all the elements that would define the future of Simple Minds. With big synth riffs, evolving arrangements and soaring moments, Big Sleep is almost crafted as a future stadium favourite, providing the perfect vehicle for Kerr's vocal style, which would reverberate in major venues for the next 4 decades. Somebody Up There Likes You could easily have been conceived by bass king Mick Karn and synth master Richard Barbieri from fellow art house pop band Japan. It is all about glorious synth string and chord progressions, twangy bass lines and moody effects. Though the prog style changes of pace don't always land, they don't detract from an instrumental that gets under your skin in an unexpectedly virulent way. When the track builds and flows, you're transported back to your bedroom, listening to vinyl on a battered old radiogram. It's quite stunning. The title track New Gold Dream delivers some of the best riffs and biggest beats, with a rhythm section so commanding you can almost picture Peter Walsh conducting the twin drummers. The track is defined by cycling synths and trance-like textures, later sampled and reinterpreted by several dance acts in the 90s. The main melodies and lyrics became part of the electronic genre, introducing the band to a new audience and helping New Gold Dream achieve even greater status. Another top 20 hit in the UK, and a second top 10 in both Australia and New Zealand, Glittering Prize solidifies the new Simple Minds sound. It also offers the clearest Kerr vocal so far, which had arguably been somewhat buried in earlier tracks. Here, it stands out, partly due to a sparser arrangement, except for the bass, of course, and partly because much of the previous pomp has been pulled back, until the chorus, that is, when the blend of new and old shines through. There's rarely a more direct and passionate lyric on the album than First Taking Hearts, Then Our Last Breath Away. While it maintains the same sound and theme as the rest of the album, Hunter and the Hunted is arguably the most forgettable track on New Gold Dream. It almost becomes a pastiche of the new sound before it has even been properly established. It's nice enough, but a couple more riffs would have helped, opening with similar electronic beats to the album's title track. King is White and In the Crowd doesn't reach the same heights, possessing a slower paced and more maudlin feel. But never mind, the peaks have been reached, the new plan is firmly in place, and Simple Minds have a sound that is set to conquer the world. The US beckons and the sound is primed.